Well, a very good morning, everybody. Welcome to our council meeting, and if I can, a special warm welcome to Mayor Helen. Lovely to have you back. And welcome to Bobby from Christian Leaders Network, and Bobby's going to open our meeting in prayer.
Your worship and council, it is an honor for me to be here on behalf of the Chief Bishop Building. So we pray. Loving God, thank you for you have all who gather here today. Thank you for your many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our calling, for sustenance and for friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. You have said that citizens ought to obey the governing authorities, since you have established those very authorities to promote peace and order and justice. Therefore, I pray that our mayor, for the various levels of city officials, and in particular for this assembled council, I'm asking that you would graciously grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, and a confidence in what is good and fitting, and the ability to work together in harmony, even when there is honest disagreement. I pray for the agenda set before them today. Please give an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit the district of Manawatu. It is in your most blessed name I pray. Amen.
Thank you very much, Bobby. Anything you'd like to share with us and what's happening in your community?
I think basically the churches are looking forward to hosting our very first Christmas carol at the Civic Center on Sunday the 18th. This is something that the Rotary have been doing over the years, and they've done a wonderful job, and they want to be able to continue. And so the churches have now been able to do that for the first time. And it is also because of the generosity of the council in sponsoring the event. And so we're looking forward to making it a wonderful community event. And so thank you. That's something that's on our agenda rather this time. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. And yeah, it is something to look forward to for us all. So thank you once again, Bobby. Thank you. Thank you. Right, move to apologies. And do we have any? No. Well, no. No, okay, we haven't received an apology. Good to see you, Councillor Underwood and Councillor Belsky. Well, morning, Councillor Campbell. We have no apologies. Any requests for leave of absence? We'll move to the confirmation of minutes, and we can find those. Item 4. Do we have a mover? Someone that was at the meeting?
Mr. Chair, just a correction on page 18. We've left out Baroness Manawatu to Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Councillor Bell.
And another, I think the Manawatu Health and Wellbeing Group is Councillor Shaw and myself is just noted as.
Great, if we can just update those. So if we can have a mover for the minutes as amended, both Councillor Bell and Blackmore's additions. Councillor Hadfield.
I believe that was Chair of the minutes of the council meeting, so those additions held on the 10th of November 2022 and the 17th of November 2022 be adopted as a true and correct report.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor McFadgen. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Sorry, I'll go to raising of hands in future. Now that we're operating in 2 levels with Zoom and at the table. So yeah, move to declarations of interest. Anyone have any declarations to declare? We'll start with Councillor Short.
Item 11.3, the private plan change
for Rongatia. As I'm an RMA Commissioner, I might well be sitting on that hearing, so I'll leave the room while that's being presented.
Mr. Mr. Chief Executive.
Councillor Short's had a discussion with me, and
that's
I see it as being appropriate.
Yes.
That way, she has absolutely no knowledge of the application, and it is highly likely she will be part of it.
Yep. Thank you, Councillor Short. Councillor McFadyen.
I'm the acting deputy chair of the Stanway Halcombe Rural Water Scheme, and that's on the agenda. So I should need to take guidance as to my involvement with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McFadyen. Anyone else? Declarations of interest? So we have nothing for public forum, presentations, notification of late items. Don't believe so. Recommendations from committees, minutes from other committees. So we'll go straight to the officer reports. And the first one is 11.1, the Manawatu Community Trust annual report. And we'll move to the General Manager Community. Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We have the Manawatu Community Trust, Teresa and Tyson and the team here, who are going to present to us today on the annual report for the end of the financial year. So I'll just ask you to come forward and present. Welcome.
It's four of us, so three of us.
Another chair.
I just say, even though it's a mixed meeting, more than a touch to begin with, it's just great to be face to face doing this. It's been a couple of years since we've been able to engage in this sort of way. Good to see some old friends and some new friends.
And it's good to see you all here too. So very big welcome.
I should start with some introductions, because that was actually the first time we met Teresa and the manager in person. Probably all know Tracy and a new trustee, Alan. Alan's just walked around the corner from his you probably know Alan reasonably well. This is to actually present our annual report, but we thought we'd also hijack it, give you an update on where we're at with our community housing provider work as well. So I hope you don't mind that. Is that okay, Mr. Chair?
Happy to be hijacked.
So, there's a rather lengthy document in here. I'm going to reduce it down to about 3 points. The first one is that we managed to get that Kilderley Health Centre completed. And if Alison was here, my financial person, she'll probably tell me off for saying we did it in the budget, but you know, when you have a budget, then you have contingency. Well, we did it within that contingency. So not within our first budget, but given everything that was occurring in the building sector and COVID, we still think that's pretty good. And big thumbs up to Liam from the Trust Board that did it, and also Alan who worked on the project, and also Colsby who worked on that project to be able to bring it in within that contingency amount is really good. So that's operational. Kilderley Healthcare's got it now and they're using it. So that will just continue to be filled up. So that's probably our first big win in that in the last year. Despite government not being able to be quick enough on the healthy homes and having to extend themselves an extra year, we're actually ahead of doing our compliance regime on that. It's costing us a lot of money. I wish they told us they were going to give us an extra year. We would have been able to use that money for some other things, but never mind, that's not the way the world works. So we're actually ahead of putting in our heat pumps and all that sort of stuff. I think it's going to cost us about 700,000 in total. So it's nice that our tenants are getting those and it's all staged out. So that's quite a good achievement for us in our view. And of course, we brought on some new staff and a new trustee. So not only Teresa, we've also got a new maintenance person, and that's kind of pushing ahead a lot of our maintenance work. You'll see in the accounts that our maintenance numbers are up as well. And a new trustee in Alan there, so we've brought some great skills and connections to the community. So that's my synopsis of the annual report. I don't know if you want to take questions on that.
Yeah, let's do that. We'll open it up for questions. Councillor Short.
Yes, just want to congratulate you on the new Cleveland win. I've been all round it several times. And actually got to take Deloitte's Auckland round for a tour of the building as well. So very impressed and a lovely facility. They're being funded by the DHB.
Yeah, no, great report. Thank you. Any other questions of the trust? Great. A special welcome to you, Teresa, in your new role. It's exciting. We look forward to working with you and seeing you at these occasions. And of course, we always look forward to seeing Tracy and Ellen, so it's always good. So please continue, Tyson.
Some of the previous members would have known that we were looking at becoming a community housing provider, so I thought I'd just give you an update on that. So we put together basically the same slides that we showed council earlier on, and we'll also give you an update. So this just gives you a bit of an idea of who we are and why we're actually looking at becoming a community housing provider. I don't know how to control that. I'll press the button. I do it. Yeah, there we go. This is just an idea for those of you who don't know us very well of who we actually house. So it's not all 80 plus. There's actually a fair number, about a third that are actually under 65. So we've actually got a reasonable spread in our tenancies. Now that 75-year plus over the next 10, 15, 20 years is expected to grow and grow. And it's not just the numbers are growing, but also right now, most of the 75 plus are individuals. That's expected to grow into more and more couples over 75 plus. That's just a shift in demographics. Apologies, I'm going to work through this because I appreciate you've got a large agenda. This is a way to describe that we only service a very small part of the housing spectrum right now. We've still got 50 on our waiting list. We don't do emergency housing, we don't do transitional housing, and we don't have any affordable ownership options. We're really doing affordable rentals, in theory for older people, but also for those that are disabled or other there. So we can cover that broad one. It's a very small slice of the housing spectrum. Because we're a council controlled organisation, government says we can't actually go any broader, they won't give us funding to go any broader. So community housing providers cannot be council controlled organisations, so we have to look at a way of getting around that so we can bring government money in to help us deliver other forms of housing. I must say it's probably occupied a lot of Teresa's time over the last few months trying to actually engage with Wellington and weave our way through all of this. So we don't get an operational subsidy from council, apart from the rates rebate, which is fantastic. Hopefully you'll keep that going. We do get loans from you and you pass on your cost of borrowing, so it's generally rates neutral in that regard because you get good funding rates from the local government funding authority. It's cheaper than for us to get it from you than from the banks. But tenants are our only source of operational income and we subsidise them quite significantly. So we do get some accommodation, tenants get accommodation supplement when they pass that through to us. We don't get any other subsidies from government. So all the subsidy falls on us. So our direction is we agree as a board that we're going to look at becoming a council housing provider. This really opens up capital funding, but also that gap between the market rate and what we are subsidising, we would be able to get that for social housing tenants. Not all of our tenants, but social housing tenants. But also allow us to look at expanding our range of offerings beyond just that narrow band currently operating. One of the things that we're very keen on and we talked to previous council about was assets should remain as a CCO. So we've tried to design options around that. Teresa's done a lot of work looking at what Christchurch and Wellington City Council have done recently. And in fact, I think we're going to steal a lot of their material, aren't we? Yeah. Why create new stuff when you just steal some people have already done? A lot of work with MB, and I think it's quite helpful. And also the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, we've sent them some of our models and they are looking at us. They're going to give us some numbers about how much they might be able to fund us.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
So we're actually getting some really good engagement with Wellington. They've actually been quite helpful. Hopefully that continues when actually got to make a decision. It's often the point where they start making themselves. We talked to KPMG and it was actually a cheap exercise, I think.
It's free exercise.
Free exercise. So you know, I don't usually get it when I talk to KPMG. I'm really pleased with it. So our goal is to put our application in 2023. So we'll come back to you with what that looks like, what the structure is, and what it all means. Hopefully we'll have some dollar figures from the about what money it could bring into our community as well. This is what we're doing it for, more social housing in our district. Even we could unlock some of that progressive home ownership. That's the way that council would like us to go. Just more options for housing partnerships. We're going to have to work with others to make this happen. So this gives us a good platform to bring others into the district, work with others around that. And it actually just makes us more financially sustainable. It's no surprise if we're subsidising market rates. That's not the best financial model in the world to be running on.
You don't see many private landlords doing that. There's a reason for it because it just doesn't make financial sense. So this is our way, rather than having to come back to you all the time. Hopefully we can steal some government money and it means less of a burden on you guys as well. That's why we're doing it. That's the time frame that we're working on. I think Teresa and I are still debating that time frame. I think she wants to bring it earlier, don't you?
No.
No, oh, that's right. I don't want to bring it earlier. It's Teresa that wants to push it out a little bit. But I think we've settled on around that April sort of mark. So we'll come back to you in the early new year if that's all right. And just give you further detail on that.
Tyson, it'd be useful to know roughly what do you see the difference between market rental and actual rentals, say per unit, and perhaps on a per annum basis in total, just to give us a rough idea of the amount that the difference that we're talking about that you're really subsidising.
This is a little old, but I think it's a little bit. It's around $75 a week per unit.
Ah, right. Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, sorry, I've got so it's not insubstantial. It certainly adds up, and it just means that we can't invest as much into new units, so maintaining them and also building new ones. So if we could, sometimes on the first day becoming a community housing provider, we'd suddenly get all that for all kinds of private units, but over 10 years, as we bring on some social housing tenants, we will start bringing some of that subsidy with us. I think the more impressive thing is, we never knew this, but government will also give us an operating subsidy and they'll capitalise that over a 10 and 25 year period, which basically means it's just capital funding to build stuff with, which we actually, when we did our first modelling, we didn't realise that was on the table. So the story actually gets better for us. But that's the sort of stuff that we're testing with the MHUB just to figure out what size that money could be. But it's nice when things get better, the news gets better rather than worse.
Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you. Thank you. That sounds like a really brilliant initiative and really exciting. Should it all go through as planned, what would be the next steps?
Oh, good question. I suppose there's some hard decisions to be made before it goes through, and that's what role council wants to play some of those, and also what other partners we should bring into the community housing provider as well. After that, it's really about finding land and building more of the units, because some of the work that Teresa's been doing with MHUB, rather than waiting until we become it and have those conversations, we're trying to understand it earlier so we can move quicker on that. So if there's land around that council has that we could use, we'd be really interested.
Thank you.
Councillor Bell.
Tēnā koutou, hurina mahi ki a koutou. Just a question. When I look at the objectives of this trust, it's really similar to Te Hi o Ruahine, Ngā Kaite Kona Te Kauwhata, and even Te Puni Kōkiri. Can I just ask what your current relational spaces are with those three entities and their Healthy Homes projects?
We've talked to all three at different times.
Awesome.
Primarily, they are interested in their own areas, especially Te Tihi. So I've engaged with Rolly quite often around the housing aspect there. Rolly's still involved with the Te Tihi.
I believe he's a councillor now as well. He is.
Currently, don't have enough to do. And of course, Kōwhata was at the opening of the health centre as well. So we've been having conversations with them as well about the health, but they are very interested in their housing as well. But we're always open to those conversations, and we do need more partners to go through. So soon be open to it.
Ka pai. Kia ora.
Current thinking around more of the same or larger units, social housing?
Well, our plan for Court actually has two bedrooms in there, simply
yes,
because the demographic is changing. And as I said before, the people are more couples aging, so often the 85 plus for singles, now it's more couples. It's going to have to turn into medium density over time. We aren't quite ready for that for Corrick Court, but as we unlock some of this government money, we're going to have to start thinking about that. And then it's really the sort of land we get that will probably dictate whether we go to medium density, where in the town is it. We don't want to go out into too far out. We really do want, for our sort of tenants, it does need to be closer to town, which probably will drive more of that medium density. If anyone owns a building and needs some apartments on top, we'd be interested in the conversation as well. That's probably a way that things will be going as well.
Right, any other questions? Right, we have a recommendation on page 22, I think it is. Do I have a mover for the recommendations? Your Worship.
I'm happy to move that the Manawatu Community Trust Annual Report 2021-2022 be received subject to the completion of the Audit New Zealand sign-off, and 2, that the Council note that the Audit New Zealand feedback be submitted to Council's information at the next meeting, available meeting after receipt.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Short. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hands. And can we please see the people on screen? The motion is passed anyway, but to the contrary, the motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you very much, team. And yeah, thank you on behalf of our community for all the wonderful work you do. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Now we move to item 11.2, the Awahuri Kitchener Park Forest Trust Annual Report. And I believe we have Chair Jill Dowra on Zoom, but I'll pass to Lynn to introduce. Hi there, Bessie and Chris. Please come to the table. Welcome. Welcome to you all. Lynn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, as Mr. Chair said, we've got Jill, the Chair, on Zoom, and both Lucy and Chris as trustees who will present their end of year report for the Awahuri Forest Kitchener Park Trust. Hand over to you. So Jill.
Jill, will welcome.
Thank you, Councillor Ford. Thank you very much. I take it the report has been read.
Yes.
I'd just like to make a few comments about the progress that's stated in our audit. We've done very well this year despite numerous floods. Just 2 particular items. Very pleased that we received this grant from Horizons to research Phragmites. Extremely lucky that Aaron Madden, who was the biodiversity officer for Horizons, is now working for Recreation Services and has been engaged to do that research and spends many hours in the park. He'll write it up and it'll be sent to MPI, and hopefully we can get this dreadful plant listed as a noxious weed and try and start getting rid of it. The other thing I'm very pleased with is the huge increase in our education program. Something like 800 children have come to the park this year, despite the weather, and engaged in wonderful activities, and the feedback has been absolutely terrific. I don't know if Bessie and Chris would like to add to those comments. No? Financially, we show a high surplus for the year, and this is not what was planned, obviously, but because of the weather, flooding and COVID, Recreation Services have got behind with their work, but that will be caught up. We were going to fence Mr. Southey's property off from the wetland, but against flooding and the way that the streams are changing constantly has put a hold on that. There's no good putting up a fence if it's going to be swept away again. We discovered this wonderful historic road on the wetland site, which we have to preserve. We're not allowed to uncover it, so we can never show it off, unfortunately, but it is there and it is a rather amazing thing. We've established a very good relationship with the Jobs for Nature team. 2 of their members are now advisory trustees, and we feel this is an excellent way to increase our partnership with Kalfota. We would like more trustees. We're desperately always looking for suitable people, but it's a time thing and people don't have the time. Hopefully that will change soon. The Jobs for Nature team are working on we've engaged them to include us in their trapping program. So we've been spreading the traps around, making more traps. I'd really prefer people ask questions, and then we can ask them what they're interested in.
Thanks very much, Jill. I'll just kick off, going back to the Phragmites. If I've got the pronunciation wrong, I apologise.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Phragmites cark. You've said that it hasn't been listed as a national biosecurity risk despite lobbying, but your comment sort of indicated that you haven't given up on that yet, that you might continue to lobbying. Have I understood that correctly?
Yes, absolutely. This is the whole purpose of this grant. It's the first time, I believe, and Bessie may be better to speak to this, but it's the first time that Horizons have actually engaged with another entity to do the research, and they have someone who is overseeing us too. So we're very well monitored. Bessie, would you like to fill in on that, please?
In terms of the Phragmites Marker project, it is an actual first for New Zealand. It is a it's a first for New Zealand, and that it is a public-private iwi led by a community entity, which is very, very unusual. We had done a whole lot of the pre-trials, managed to get funding based on what our outcomes were and indicators, and that was going through. We're strongly supported by MPI, who are moderating the research on our behalf. It's a 2-year funding, and we are continually lobbying also to get it listed. It is actually recorded in Auckland. It is becoming quite invasive through its estuaries. We now have records of it, and we're very concerned at the fact that it is actually establishing on our beaches down here in the West Coast. It's the research and the project we're working on. Although we're using the park for the micro research, we are doing scale up work that will start about May, and that will be right across the region. So it's a very unusual situation for a charitable trust to be in, but I believe it is the best way. It gives us opportunities, flexibilities, and we're not bound and constrained. We have a lot more freedoms to look more widely. So we're linked with Horizons, MPI, the iwi, Manawatu. Just, you know, the parks people here are fully aware of what we're doing. We've got several researchers and plant specialists from all over the world, over the country, working with us.
Thank you, Bessie. I think Councillor Bell had a question.
For starters, I would just like to acknowledge Kitchener Park Aotearoa Forest Trustees and all the work that's been put in place for this year. You've had a wonderful year. I was lucky enough to actually be one of your key speakers for the children that have come through, and they just thoroughly enjoy it. So well done for the relational spaces that you continue to nurture. I think one of the things that I'm really lucky enough to be aware of, because I am Ngāti Kōwhata, is that there is a strong relationship that we have. The only thing that I would probably recommend is that in your report, it doesn't show that. And it's so important that we have that, especially in your vision and your 5 goals. You talk about key stakeholders. We're not a stakeholder, we are mana whenua. And it's really important. I'm more than happy to come in and help. I believe I have 2 cousins that have just joined the governance table, the committee as such. And I'm sure they'll be able to assist with that place. I can volunteer them now for you all, but I'm happy to come in and support that space too, just to ensure that the reporting is reflective of the relationship that we have and the research that's been done. The kiosk, the mahi there. I also want to acknowledge the beautiful seat that has gone on for my Uncle Jeff. He was a special man. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. Ngā mihi kia koutou. That's just me.
Thank you. Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you. And thanks to Councillor Bell for that clarification, because it's something I did wonder about actually from reading the report. But my question is, if this plant is listed as a national biosecurity risk, and excuse my naivety, what would that mean for how that would help?
Okay. What it actually means is we then actually can get resources from places like DOC to actually support the region. And I'd like to stress, it is a problem in the park, but it's also a problem across the region. And until there's some listing, formal listing of it, we're disempowered to really get some major resource behind it.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Shaw. Oh, Jill, please.
Could I just respond to Councillor Spell's very good comments? Yes, we miss Jeff sadly. He was very, very good in the park, and personally, I do miss him. And I'm glad there is another seat to go into, so there'll be 2 seats, and we're just waiting to hear what sort of wording we'll put on Jeff's seat. With regard to the offer to help us, a lot of this stuff was the strategic plan we did 2 years ago. So yes, we do need to update it. The other thing is that the inclusion of our new advisories, Bruce and Clinton, is quite recent, and so it doesn't show in the audit. I believe that it's happened about the same time, but it isn't. It will be shown obviously in next year's. We haven't ignored them. We certainly haven't. We're just so glad to have them there. They're so enthusiastic. It's absolutely marvellous. They've brought a whole new vision to the trust.
Thanks, Jill. Councillor Short.
Thank you. I just particularly wanted to acknowledge the work that you've done, Bessie. The Phragmites carca is not a new weed. It's been under our nose for years, and we all thought it was bamboo. Yeah. And you were able to identify that it wasn't, and we suddenly realised how riddled we were with it right through the town and across the district. So congratulations for your tenacity and perseverance. And the program that you have now is, I'm sure, down 100% to your very, very hard work. Thank you.
Councillor Belsky.
Yeah, just because I'm interested in pest control. On your pest control, do you keep, there's about 3 questions on it, but do you keep a tally of your kill? Do you catch, have there been stoats and weasels in there?
Yes, we do keep a tally. Chris, would you like to speak to that? We do keep a tally every month, I think.
Every month we have a tally of the stoats.
Excuse me, Bessie, could you just pass the microphone to Chris? Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, we keep a tally of the stoats, the weasels, the rats and the possums, and dare I say it, the feral cats. We keep that. I mean, with the sheds, the traps that we use are dock traps and also traps that were made for us by the men's shed. They were very helpful in making traps. So we have a buffer zone which goes right around, now includes Manfield, which is the tyre stacks at Manfield are virtually like motels for possums. So we're gradually catching them there. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. The other thing that was a bit surprising was your depreciation of only 5 years on these traps. 5 years, you know, I've got traps 10 years still in good functioning order. I'm just wondering why they wear out so fast, because the boxes are obviously tannalized. The traps, or the DOC 200 traps, if they're galvanized and wearing out, rusting out quite quick, you can get stainless steel ones. And I'm a little bit surprised that your depreciation is over 5 years instead of, or maybe 10 or 15, that's all.
Do you wish to comment on that? Anyone from the trust?
I think it might be because we only really started seriously trapping in 5 years. I don't. A lot of the traps get broken by people. They get stolen. I really can't offer an answer to that very much. But it is. I don't think we've only started trapping probably in the last 5 years. And some of the traps we inherited weren't ours. we used a lot that belonged to Graham Dixon, so maybe that was his. Okay. I really don't know.
No, stealing is a problem. we've got ours screwed down or a little steel standard, and so people can't uplift them. But there is an issue with stealing, and I did hear you did have a had some vandalised some time ago. Is that still happening?
Yes, yes, we still have a vandalism problem. We've gone down even in the last few weeks, and traps where we've put them have actually been picked up and chucked into other areas, and it's still happening.
Right. What about vandalism in the park in general?
Well, we suffered this terrible vandalism when the new boardwalk was being built. We couldn't catch the people there. We set up cameras. Luckily, the weather got so bad they didn't want to come out at night, so it stopped, and the boardwalk was able to be completed. But unfortunately, it is a problem. I believe that Dennis Emery caught someone shooting a bow and arrow in the park recently in the car park. It was reported to the police, and hopefully the gentleman has had a good telling off. I'm afraid that the humans are our worst pest in the park.
That's true. Yep.
I can't set traps for them. And don't get me onto cyclists.
Well, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Belsky. Anyone else? Councillor Hadfield?
Yeah, look, I think the Quip was right about the size of the traps, given the security issues. But I think I'd just say thanks for raising that issue, because I think the community through social media are raising more and more concerns about some of the lawlessness that's actually occurring in town. And you guys have just sort of reinforced this in your report. So thanks for that. I guess there'll be a little bit of pressure on council at some stage to have another crack at the police around these issues.
Right. If there's no other questions, we'll go to the recommendation on page 55. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Blackmore.
I move that the council receive the Awahuri Forest Kitchener Park Trust's annual report for the period of the 1st of July 2021 to the 30th of June 2022.
Thank you. So seconder, please. Councillor Bell, any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. To the contrary, the motion is passed. So Jill, Bessie, Chris, thank you very much. Thank you for the great work that you do. Yeah, good luck with your future endeavours. Yeah, thank you very much. We do have Matt there. That's good. Okay. So we'll move to item 11.3. Turn to page 77. And that's the approval to accept and notify Rongotea South private plan change. And I'll hand to Chief Executive Shane Harris and welcome Matthew Mackay on Zoom. And I hope you don't get sick. Apparently that's a distinct possibility in your family. And welcome to Duncan and Susie Cheetham in the gallery.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Council, I just need to remind you that the process we're going through here is to accept or not the private plan change from the achievements. It's not for council in this process to decide on the technicalities of whether it will work or not. That is an RMA process that will be gone through as part of the plan change process. So we're not here to debate whether there's going to be enough sections or whether the stormwater will work or whether the sewage will work or whether the traffic's not going to go here or there. That is not for the council. That is for the RMA hearing process. So really the decision for council today is outlined in Matt's report, and Matt's going to speak to that shortly, but I just need to remind you that it's not for us to get into the details as part of this process. Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Shane, and tēnā tātou koutou. Good morning, councillors. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, apologies, yeah, not that I'm not in present, but I thought I'd stick to the COVID guidelines and keep out of the council building today. So we have received this private plan change application, and as Shane has talked about, there are two recommendations on the table, two decisions that council needs to make. It is a process-related matter as opposed to the substance, and that will follow as part of that RMA plan change process. My report covers off a few matters. I'll highlight a couple of those, but then open up for questions for clarifications. I know that there are some councillors who are new to the planning space, so just for clarity at the start, this is a plan change, and that means it's about changing the actual document itself. It's different to a resource consent or a subdivision consent. That will come later. This is actually a change whereby the extent of zoning is being altered, the rules are being altered. The RMA has always included the ability for private applicants to change the plan, and here's our example of this. They're one of the first for the Manawatu in quite a while, actually, too. There are a couple of options which are outlined in my report that are set out in the RMA, and it is quite a prescriptive set of options that council has. So in section 3, the options in front of us, the RMA says that we can either adopt, accept, treat an application as a resource consent, or reject the request. And my recommendation is that this is accepted, and that essentially means that it remains a private proposal, as opposed to adopting it where it would become a council project. There's a limited grounds whereby a decision could be made to reject. And again, this is covered off in my report. There's no grounds that have been identified to reject it, and essentially, this needs to be tested through the RMA Schedule 1 process. I have noted one issue, which is a live matter, and that is in regards to the new National Policy Statement for Highly Productive Land. Now, this is a new document and it's untested by the courts. We don't have a whole lot of clarity around how it will be interpreted. We know how it was intended to be interpreted, but there is sort of some challenges, I guess, in being clear around that. I note that there's sort of some challenges in that, and again, it's not, but not to the extent that's grounds for rejection, rather than that can be healthily tested through that planning process. So the recommendations on the table are for council to accept and then notify. Notification would begin this side of Christmas. As a private plan change, council is in a slightly different space to a normal plan change process, and we also become a submitter in this. So, if there are, while Shane mentioned before, questions around the details, council can, actually do, make submissions to request changes or look for things if it so felt appropriate at that time. But yeah, at this point in time, it's a process decision, and my recommendation note to that. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Matthew. I've got a couple. So sticking with the NPS HPL, we seem to have two. We have the maps that show that it's class 2.
Yes.
But we've got a more intensive study at a closer scale, whatever the wording is, that show that it's class 4 and 6 by Sean Hainsworth, and you've said that basically it's been untested. So are we talking about the courts deciding who's right between those two things? Is that what you're talking about, or can you just elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah, that's fine.
It seems to be quite a substantive issue, and I know we're not here to debate the merits of the application, but I just think it would be helpful to have a clearer understanding of this point.
Yeah, that's fine. So essentially the national policy statement for highly productive land has an interim definition for what is classified as highly productive land. So again, where does this document apply? And the way that it's worded says it's the New Zealand Land Resource Inventory, which is that high level map. And we know that's been completed to 1 to 60,000. So, no one's done detailed farm mapping across the country. The map is what it is. The intent of the national policy statement was that further mapping, detailed mapping, site-specific mapping would provide for greater clarity, as is seen in this example. The challenge that we've got is that the wording of the actual document doesn't explicitly say that as I've referenced then. So there's essentially two ways that you could read the national policy statement. One, which would be to say, as in this case, that further detailed work would make land that's previously been classified as highly productive no longer highly productive. And the second read says that actually, if land is classified as highly productive under the NZ Land Resource Inventory, that can't be reclassified other than by the regional council. So there's sort of two reads of that. It's a flag in the report because it's an untested. This is where the judiciary needs to make some decision. For council's reference, I'd say two things. One, we know the intent of the system is that the work done on more site-specific, that has factual basis, right? So that has meaning and it's not discarded. And the second thing is that even if land was identified as highly productive land under the MVS, that document still provides a pathway for urban rezoning. So there's ways and means, I guess, for this to be processed through that planning process.
Thank you. I'll just ask Mr. Harris to add to that.
So just to endorse Matt's remarks, Matt and I had a conversation about this yesterday.
Can you just put your microphone on?
It's on, so I'm not sure what's going on. No, it's not. So Matt and I had a conversation about this yesterday. So the key point for me is we've had varying legal opinions. So we haven't had legal opinions that agree with each other yet. So that's usually the way with new legislation or new rules. So my view, and Matt just alluded to a little bit earlier, is you've got to go back, I think, to the intent of what's trying to be achieved here. And that is that highly productive soils are protected. If it can be proven that the soils in questions are not highly productive, then I think the intent is not to protect them, that this type of development can proceed. Otherwise, it wouldn't be worded the way that it is. So the judiciary will decide that, but in deciding it, they will look at intent. So that's why Matt alluded to that earlier. So I'm confident that we should support this, and then it'll have to probably be tried, tested a little bit as we go through the process. But both Matt and I support that. The intent is to protect highly productive soils, not to protect unproductive soils or the less class soils. Otherwise, we'd never have any development anywhere. So that's where we sit.
Thank you both for that. I've got just another one before Councillor Hadfield. Just a little bit about the history, in that this is unusual or interesting in the fact that Council has previously identified that land as being land that Council has considered appropriate for development. So perhaps just a little bit of the history of that, Matthew.
Yeah, that's fine.
And how it's basically gone from being possibly a council-led plan change to a private one. That would be helpful.
Yes, so in my report, I talk about that a little bit. So council, when it was completing some early work around our rural review and rural and village review, we had some zoning kind of questions and sought feedback around what does the zoning of the district look like. And there was a few conversations around with parties who were looking to do larger scale projects. And so as part of that, we had conversations with the landowner and included in the draft rural plan change this land as village expansion. And so essentially from that point, the applicant has decided that instead of waiting for council to go through its plan change process, that they'll take the lead and run it through as a private plan change.
Thank you. Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. And at risk of being on the end of the wrath of the chair, I'm going to make a bit of a statement. I think Matthew's made it clear about I think the vagaries in the new national policy statement around how you classify class 1, 2 or 3 soils. And that was the first thing, the question that Councillor Ford asked was highest on my list of things that struck out here. The fact that detailed analysis shows that being as class 4 and class 6 with an overarching initial response of class 2. So again, we have ambiguous legislation, which seems to happen frequently, to be fair. And I'm going to say this regardless. I read a very good quote from a learned legal person the other day, is that ambiguity in legislation leads to judicial activism. And I find that rather a poignant statement. But regardless, I thank you, Matthew, for clarifying the issues around that land classification. And I find that I'm supportive of this.
Your Worship.
Thank you. I just have a question on page 6 of the Property Group report. It says the Rongatea South structure plan includes new public pathways, cycleways and public open space. My question is, so who builds those and who funds those?
That'll be all part of the RMA processes to, when we get more detailed planning around the subdivision process itself. So this is really only zoning that we're talking about here. We haven't got into details around any of that other stuff.
I guess what I'm signalling is that if the expectation is that council would be providing those spaces, we need to have them in our budgeting forecast.
Those expectations wouldn't be set now. They will come later with the application subdivision. So the process is, this is a plan change to change the zoning to allow for what is proposed. Later on, the developer will submit a detailed subdivision plan that will comply with the rules around whatever the zoning, if it's put in place, and matters like that will have to be addressed at that time as to who's doing what, who's paying for what.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm signalling there is that there is potential, and I'm not saying it's wrong, there is potential that council would have to consider budgeting to allow for that work to do if we go down the path, and that's how it comes out the other end.
It could be an outcome, but that's all part of that process, and it is probably some time away.
Councillor Quarry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with most of the comments that have been made to date, but I'd still like to raise the points in regard to the soil type. We've got a quote that it goes from classification 4 to classification 6. I believe that is blatantly wrong. When you consider classification 7 is right up the Parapara or the top of the Waitotra Valley. And to go from Rongatea land to the top of the Parapara in one stage is just a nonsense. So this classification of the soil types, I believe, is wrong. If we come back the other way, the top soil types of class 1 and class 2 are silt and peat. And here we have in the report a mention that part of this proposed subdivision is of peat soil types, and yet it is not classified as 1 or 2. So I believe the classification is probably a 3 to 4, but okay, that's my opinion. I wouldn't vote against this in that the area was planned to be subdivided in the main. So whether we have 2 houses or 3 houses, where there was to be 1 house, doesn't really alter the productive capability of the soil. So yeah, hence I wouldn't vote against it for that. But I believe the point has been raised in regard to how we classify our soils. And it's, as Councillor Hadfield mentioned, that the judiciary is going to be called upon to make some clear statements in regard to that. And so every time there is a plan change, there'll be a great debate as to what exactly it is. So yeah, that's somewhat disappointing. The other point is that because this was planned before the government announcement in regard to the new classifications, does that take precedence over the allowing this subdivision to go through? It doesn't. So government regulation would override that. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so those are the comments I'd like to make. I believe that it's going to cause further problems in the future. We talk about, just to add a sideline, we talk about removal of productive land. Well, the biggest removal of productive land is going to be the plantation forestry. And we're talking about, 20 hectares here in Rangitia, but we're not talking about the thousands of hectares that could go to pines. So, yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good point on perspective. Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you. I suspect I know partially the answer to this, given Chief Executive's response to Her Worship's question. There's the statement, para 7.2, about should the plan change be successful, Council would need to identify and plan for necessary infrastructure upgrades. Just for my own understanding, I'm wondering what they might be and how Council would prioritise those against other infrastructure projects.
Yeah, I can speak to that. So there's, as part of any plan change, an applicant does some due diligence work around the services capability and capacity. And so that's included in this document. And some of that testing work and modelling work has shown that, at some point in the future, there may be the need for some water pump upgrades. And so at that point, but again, it would depend on what happens with the level of development within Rangitia village itself. So again, through the, going back to what the Chief Executive has said, going through the plan change process itself, we have another more detailed look at all of that and make sure that how that plan change lands in terms of changes to the district plan includes the necessary methods or requirements that might come later in terms of infrastructure upgrades. And we would need to then time those into long-term planning and asset management planning.
Shane.
And just to add to that, our infrastructure team, as part of that, will do an assessment, and that will be built into our schedules for development contributions. So the appropriate upgrades, because of the growth, will be incorporated into those schedules, and the relevant development contributions will apply. Yep.
Councillor Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Tēnā koe me. I'm hoping you can help me with this, and I'm hoping it's just my eyesight. I wasn't able to see Appendix E, the CVR, the Cultural Values Report. Can you just guide us where that is, please?
So the main bulk of the attachments were so large that they're actually included and attached out the front, I believe. So Ash might be able to make a comment on that.
Ash, could you please guide us on that?
Yeah, sure. So in terms there's two further documents, one for annexes A to D, and then there's one for annexes E to K.
Thank you. Sorry, Matt, just another question, please. When it comes to the CVR, is that just in isolation with Rangitane or by Rangitane?
I believe that was completed by Rangitane, And so as part of the consultation exercise that follows from here, we notify all iwi agencies and say, we've received this information that might generate additional work or feedback into this process.
Okay.
Councillor Hadfield.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Look, conscious of everybody's comments and the fact that we're actually not getting into detail here. That's the process of the hearings process, and the fact that we should always support the hearings process and have faith in it. If there's no further conversation, Mr. Chair, I'm happy to move the recommendation that the Rongotia South private plan change included as attachment 2 be accepted pursuant to clause 25(2)(b), part 2 of the first schedule of the Resource Management Act 1991, that the Rongotia South private plan change be publicly notified in accordance with clause 26, part 2 of the first schedule of the Resource Management Act 1991, and that the Chief Executive be authorised to make minor amendments to the Rongotia South private plan change.
Seconded by Her Worship. Any discussion? We'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. To the contrary? Carried. Now, does anyone... Yep. I'll just leave it at that. Thank you. Thank you, Ash. So the process continues.
Yeah, I was just, if I may, Mr. Chair, can you just explain to us what the next step in the process is for this?
So the next step is public notification.
Yeah.
So we will, Matt's team will now bring all that together, and Matt, you will be appointing a independent entity to undertake that.
So we will do the notification. The notification takes place. We're aiming for it to be out next week, if not the week after, but get onto it. So notification means everyone directly adjacent will receive a letter from council saying we've received this private plan change. As well as that, there's advertisements in the newspaper and including and in the Rongotia local paper too, and on council's website and Facebook too. So submission period will run through to end of January, and that's the opportunity for people to make submissions. And like any plan change, what happens then is those original submissions are then released back out, summarised and released back out. So there's a second round of feedback for people to kind of make comment if they've seen something that they agree with or don't agree with. And then we move to a hearing. The hearing would need to be, with independent chairs, and just because we've only got one standing councillor who's accredited. And council makes a submission as part, we have a slightly different role in terms of we make a submission just like any other party.
All right, thanks very much, Matthew. Appreciate your guidance. Right, we move to item 11.4, the adoption of schedule of meetings 2023. I'll pass to Ash, I'm assuming.
Thank you. So included in the agenda that went out on Friday was the schedule, and it has since been updated. So the updated schedule just to quickly summarise the changes, the creative communities assessment has been shifted just to better align with the funding dates. And the district development committee has been moved forward a month to better align with our priority services reporting. Because we've shifted that, we've also shifted audit and risk back months so that they're not occurring at the same time. So I've adjusted the staff recommendation, and I'll put it up on the screen for you to see. So yeah, any questions?
Thanks, Ash. Any questions Councillor Blackmore.
I just wanted to check the council workshop meeting scheduled for the 23rd is actually the 3rd week of the month, and I'm just checking that's correct and not a sorry, it seems a week out if we're doing first Thursday and third Thursday.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, so that's been specifically
okay.
For the rest of 2 weeks.
Cool, thank you.
Any other questions? Right, we have a recommendation on page 123, which I'll move, that the council adopts the schedule of meetings for 2023 as set out in, should I be reading the screen rather than mine? That the council adopts the tabled meeting calendar for 2023 amended, noting that this is a correction to attachment 1 of the report. Amendments are detailed on page 2 of the tabled meeting calendar. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hadfield, any discussion?
Yes, the question I was going to ask is, when these were put together in dates, was there any consideration given to LGNZ main meetings like zone meetings, rural and provincial, etc., because they seem to continually clash with council?
I'm afraid I can't answer that, Your Worship.
Yeah, we had a look at those, but some cases we would just, it's just going to have to be a clash.
Yeah.
And it'll mean, you know, what we had to do in the past, where someone goes and someone stays in the meeting.
Yeah.
And LGNZ are pretty inflexible around.
Okay, Councillor Quigley.
I presume these can be amended later anyway, can they?
Yeah, they can. Yeah, so we've just adopted it for the year for ease, and so we've already planned. But as far as mentioning any meeting dates, there will be more ad hoc.
The only real dates that are pretty hard and fast are the council ones.
Yes.
We like to keep those, you know, as advertised. But everything else is, we can shift around a little bit. And sometimes we do, and sometimes we'll put in additional meetings as well. And that's LTP coming up next year, who knows? There might be the odd extra meeting going in here and there. So.
Just a note there from Amanda. Did you get that? All right. Right, so there needs to be a little bit of flexibility going forward. All right, well, we have the motion moved and seconded. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. To the contrary, carried. Thanks very much. 11.5, council submissions. We're on page 128. So these were submissions lodged in October and November. And welcome Lisa to the table. Hi, Lisa.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, councillors and colleagues. There we go, now it's green. Okay. Good morning, Mr. Chair, councillors and colleagues. So yeah, the report in front of you today is just tabling the submissions that have been lodged on behalf of council in the months of October and November. So from over the period from the 6th of October to the 18th of November, there was another November submission lodged after that date, but that will be presented in the next report. So the submissions were prepared by council officers and approved for submission by the submissions assessment panel. Yes, I'm just happy to take any questions, or if anyone, I can sort of elaborate on the contents of some of the submissions if that would be helpful.
Thank you, Lisa. Just a quick comment to start with is a huge thank you to you and your team, and also the submissions assessment panel. We really do understand that it is an onerous task, and we're very grateful to all the work that goes into it. Questions, clarification? Councillor Campbell.
I think
I just noted this morning on stuff, a softening of the government's approach on pricing of agricultural emissions. There was an announcement yesterday at field days by the Prime Minister. So maybe our submission had some effect. Thank you.
Councillor Short.
I just thought you'd be interested to know at Zone 3, this was a topic of discussion, the amount of policy review and reform, and it was agreed at that meeting to put out a media release aimed at the government, telling them that it was very unreasonable to have so much coming out over the Christmas period.
And that was done too.
I've got a copy of that if you haven't got an electronic.
I didn't see it picked up at all, did you? I saw the release, but I didn't see it on stuff or anything.
No, I haven't spotted it anywhere yet. No.
If I may, Mr. Chair, the other things to note is that there are several submissions underway at the moment. We've got the 2 draft bills that will replace the Resource Management Act. So I'm taking, there's a workshop presentation on that item at the 15th of December. Submissions on those close on the 30th of January. So that's over the period that council is closed effectively, but we will be drafting those, and I'm happy to circulate them by email if people want to see those broader than the submissions assessment group, given their importance. And also the Future for Local Government review, we sort of had a quick chat about that at a previous workshop. There will be a presentation on our engagement approach and general thoughts for the submission at the 15th of December workshop as well. So those are kind of biggies that are underway currently.
Thank you. Shane.
Just on the Future for Local Government. So we were down, a number of us were in Wellington earlier this week, and the Minister confirmed that any work on the Future for Local Government, when she receives the report next year, will be for whatever government's in government post the election. So the report will be released, but they will be doing nothing with it. It will be left to whoever is the government post the election. So it's just, there's going to be nothing done, essentially.
Okay. Councillor Hatfield.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to move, but just a quick comment on the Future for Local Government. I did actually log on to one of those webby things the other day that I see Councillor Blackmore was on as well. Quite a technological achievement for me, really. But what was interesting, and unfortunately I missed the first breakout group while I was making myself a sandwich. But the second one was really interesting. But you know, there was a clear message from the breakout groups to that seminar that appointments to council was not something that anybody considered in a positive light. Mayor Ron Mark was certainly vocal. He was on another group, but anyhow, just that was an interesting point that came out of that. But look, I'd happily move the council's. Where is it that the council receives and notes the submissions lodged on behalf of the Manawatu District Council, as outlined in the report of the General Manager Corporate Services dated 8th November 2022.
Thank you, Councillor Hadfield. Is there a seconder? Councillor McFadyen. Any discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. It's the contrary. Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lisa. Move to 11.6, the Manawatu Youth Council and Community Committee meetings, mainly there for our reference. Lynn, anything you'd like to speak to?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For the Youth Council, most of the Youth Council reports, as you say, is taken as read. Just highlights the number of events the Youth Council has successfully been able to roll out for our district. And it also does highlight the significant amount of work that Steve Skinner has done to support the Youth Council, and that is very much appreciated. So that's it for the Youth Council. That's all I'll speak to.
Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Steph. Right. We'll just give the opportunity for the liaison councillors to speak to the reports if appropriate. So starting with and bearing in mind that some of these are historical and date back to pre the election. So we'll start with the Youth Council. Any comments for us?
Nothing on the minutes submitted here, but perhaps just to let everybody know, I've attended one of their meetings, the Zoom meetings. We have another on here on Monday night. The Youth Council are very focused at the moment on the transition between the years and voting in a new chair in particular. It seems the focus is very much on running events in the year to come, but it will be very interesting to see how the focus may evolve perhaps over the next little while. Thank you.
Councillor Short.
I also just wanted to commend the Youth Council for their events. I helped at both the Colour Run and the Young Achievers Awards, both of which were attended by huge amounts of people, and also acknowledge the work done by Steph, but on the Colour Run also the work done by Lynn, who ended up getting the exciting job of counting all the money afterwards, brought out her bank teller skills. The event at the Civic Centre was hugely successful. 169 students acknowledged, had to be in 2 ceremonies, such was the size of the crowd, very well received. And probably the only thing I would say is next year we just need to pull it forward a couple of weeks, because unfortunately it was the first week of NCA. So for the youth counsellors, it was just a little bit pressurised for them. They had a late night and some of them were sitting exams the next day. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Short. Go to Apathy. Anything to report, Councillor Belsky?
No, just the ramp that they were designing to come from their hall out into their land area was spiralling out of control, and I think they may relook at that when the building industry takes a big downturn and people look for work. So they've just postponed that. Other than that, everything's ticking by. Thanks.
Thanks very much. Move to Cheltenham. Anything to report? Beg your pardon?
Andrew. Oh, no. Well, no. Yeah, they haven't.
That's fine. Yeah, thank you. Halcombe.
Historical, not met. Excuse me. Historical, not met yet.
Just trying to flick through. Hamatangi.
Andrew.
Andrew.
Yeah, if I could add, there's large concerns in regard to the access to the beach. It is a health and safety issue, in that the access at the best of times is to say limited. It is single vehicle. The vehicles tend to get stuck in the soft sand, and that reduces any emergency vehicles' access to the beach to respond to an emergency. And they believe it's a critical factor for the access to be improved before the summer.
I can speak to that.
Lynn.
There is a meeting that has been held that James had with the committee and various other parties to get that access resolved prior to Christmas.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, they've also got a concern in regard to the quality of the stream that flows through Hamatangi, but that's more a Horizons issue.
Right. Huanui.
They had their triennial election meeting last Tuesday, which I attended, and their new committee was elected.
Thank you, Councillor Underwood. Kimbolton.
Historical, not met yet.
Hongana.
Meeting tonight.
Rangawahia.
had their triennial elections the other night. Nothing much else to report there.
Rongatea.
The highlight of that meeting, which October, was their annual stub in the bucket.
Did you win, Councillor Quarry?
Yes.
Sanson.
Yeah, they've got concerns with regard to meeting with NZTA and regard to the safety concerns with the village. They understand they're going to have a meeting with NZTA reps, so that's something they're looking forward to.
Thank you. Waituna West.
Well, as you know, I missed the meeting and Steve stood on my behalf, but since I have spoken.
Yeah, no, thanks, Gary. Yeah, no, Waituna's plodding along. Yeah, and they're just waiting to get their hall painted, which is which is in the system, and hopefully the weather will pick up and they were able to do that. But no, there's nothing much to report. They have got their the last Sunday before Christmas, I've got their community function, the community barbecue day. So if anyone's interested to go out to Waituna on the last Sunday before Christmas, they're more than welcome. Thanks.
Thank you.
I was going to say, I did speak to John Williamson after that meeting. He didn't raise any concerns to me. I think the next meeting's in February.
Very good. Thank you.
I'll get to.
Excellent. Sorry, was that the last one? I've just changed positions on the screen. Right.
Glenarua, Taikarea went on there, but they've held a meeting. Obviously, they were exempt from the triennial, but they also held a planning meeting.
Yes.
On Monday evening, and thank you to Councillors McFadden and Quarry for turning up to give expert wisdom and guidance.
Councillor Short.
I'll just add on about Tangi Moana. We held a meeting a couple of Mondays ago where the research team from Massey University doing the Deep South project attended, and I'd particularly like to acknowledge all the staff that came. I think there was 5 or 6 staff from MDC. Horizons were invited, but didn't send anybody. And the community, probably, I think it was 17 or 18 people turned up, including school principal and a few other key people. So they're very interested in getting that project kicked off in February. So the project is around climate change and how it will affect Tangi Moana, but also making some recommendations of how it can be mitigated in the future. So working alongside the community to see what the community want as well. That report, when it's available, will be tabled mid-year, end of next year to ourselves, Horizons and government. So we need to look out for the recommendations that come out of that, because there will probably be some financial implications in there as well.
Thanks, Councillor Short, and thanks for, I think, rallying around to bolster the numbers at the meeting from the community as well. So well done. Kiwatea did meet last week. It wasn't their AGM. That's not happening till early in the new year, but it was, yeah, they're in good shape, and yeah, doing up their kitchen is their big project at the moment. Fielding a district promotion, can we just update there, perhaps, Councillor Campbell?
Yeah, the main thing is the AGM is coming up next Thursday. Councillors would have received an invite to that, so I encourage you to attend if you can. At the coach house, I understand. The main issue will be election of a new chair. I'm not sure who's likely to do that, but Carl has announced he's won't be continuing as he said initially when he took the job on. So a little bit of concern as to succession. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Obviously, they've got some work to do on parking submission for us too, hopefully. So yeah, little
little article and stuff.
Yeah, this morning, which was very good. So
yeah,
hopefully that generates some interest in the parking issues in town.
Thank you. Councillor Blackmore.
Perhaps just a comment on the Colleton community. Councillor Ford and I have been in touch with a previous chair who has some recommendations about perhaps more the format of the committee and how we could change that to really encourage participation. So it's a work in progress, and given the time of year, probably just back off a little bit and then re-engage in the new year.
Thank you and good luck. Your Worship.
I was just going to follow on from the FDP. The last couple of days, I've talked to FDP and numerous businesses in the CBD. The shoplifting is increasing. It's on a daily basis. It's at high level items, and the retailers are just asking, what can we do? And FDP's working with neighbourhood support. The biggest concern is that with the new team at FDP, they weren't aware that the CBD patrol is funded by the businesses. And therefore they're entitled to receive information on what the CBD patrol finds on their patrols, to see the results, to get some trends. It's even something that FDP should be reporting on to ourselves to show us the trends, but more importantly, what initiatives are being taken to support the business community. And the police have been going individually into the businesses. They're saying they don't have the staff, despite what above them tells us. The staff, they don't have the people on the ground to help with them. I have suggested that the police hold a workshop with the CBD. There's really mixed messages about what you can and can't do under the Privacy Act and about tackling shoplifters. There are things that, according to Nick, there are things that you can do, and that information needs to be spread to all of the businesses. But on the other side, there are bigger businesses in town whose head office say you are not allowed to do anything at all for a shoplifter, including if you ask to look in the bag and they say no, you cannot go any further. So we need to get some confidence with the business community about what they can and can't do. And we need to get, it's been an age-old problem with police, about how do we fix this as a community. And if the police are not going to resource us to do that, what are the community initiatives that we can do, not just for the CBD, but for the rest of the district?
Councillor Corrie.
Yeah, thank you. Leading on from that, what is their progress in regard to security cameras? How are they tracking on that? Because I think that would make a...
I asked that question yesterday when I met with Jan. They're working through the privacy requirements, etc. It is frustrating because this project's gone round and round and round in circles, and all that work was done a long time ago, and should have been ready for applying to Central Energy Trust. So of course they've missed out now until May. So and to be fair to FDP, they've got a new manager who's trying to get her feet under the table and figure out what's going on. So yeah, my push to them is get that funding application and get it. It should have been in years ago.
Exactly.
Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Look, further on from the comments I made earlier about the vandalism and stuff at Kitchener Park, I have seen on a bit of social media some posts which included some of our email addresses, including one of our departed colleagues, Filson Marsh's address was still up. You know, around this, there was also a post, I think, about Turners being smash and grab at 2 a.m. I think sounds like a stolen car. What was interested in looking at that video clip was there was a couple of cars drove past while it was all happening. When you wonder where the hell the good citizen bit came in, unless of course they were accomplices. But it's clear that something needs to be done, and something needs to be done quickly, my view is the community are actually asking for a public meeting again. You know, I know some time ago we had a little protest around the clock tower that some of the police turned up to, but I think, you know, the community are looking to us for something, for some progress, or at least a public meeting. I think it's something that we need to give consideration to.
Can I just suggest that one of the sticking points in the police hierarchy is, we've been advised, is being moved on. So my suggestion is that we wait until she has gone, and then try and build a relationship with her replacement. It also needs to get confidence from the police hierarchy that when you have a sergeant in charge of your office, that he has the freedom and the rights to communicate with the mayor and council about what is actually going on, because currently he's been told he's not allowed to talk. So we are aware of what's going on. There's some big changes coming in the hierarchy in the police for this area. And so our plan is, and also working with Lynn, our plan is to get them around the table and have a conversation.
Councillor Bell, I think you had your hand up, then Councillor Short.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just following on from Councillor Hadfield, I've been messaged several times in the last 4 days if council would hold a public meeting so that we can hear the concerns from the community. There's 2 businesses that have reached out to me. One of them had a brick through their window. And I think one of the things that I recognise that throughout our campaign, we were asked several times before we were elected what we were going to do about it. So if there's a forum or a process where we can at least hear what's happening in our community collectively, so that we offer our sense of support, even if it's just in the gesture at the first stage, that would be really helpful. Just an idea.
Thank you. Councillor Short.
Yes, I think that's a good idea, Bridget. And as soon as possible to hear the community soon, even though I know there's going to be changes with police. I think it's very topical at the moment. The other day, in response to the homicide at the dairy in Auckland, the government announced some justice funding, and CCTV was in that package. I don't know whether Fielding and District Promotion would qualify, but it would certainly be worth their looking into it.
Yeah. With that package, they did mention three cities that were to receive it.
Oh, was it?
Well,
Auckland,
whether
Hamilton,
and
Christchurch or something.
Somewhere,
oh, yeah.
but whether it spreads out from there is.
Yeah, I just thought it was a brief headline.
Yeah.
I didn't know the detail.
No, it was the major cities.
Yeah.
So with the, you know, I think the idea of a public meeting is a good idea. It's just the timing of it, because if you have one today, yes, we'll hear all everything that's going wrong, and basically probably can't offer much. Whereas if we wait a little bit and have as a result of a new relationship with a new senior police person, with hopefully who's going to be more open to solutions, it could be a more worthwhile meeting rather than just a bitch session, to use a technical term. Councillor McFadden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My suggestion would be that we actually reach out to the community and tell them our intention to have the meeting once the change is made in the police structure. So we don't ignore it currently, but we signal that when the structure is right, that will be appropriate then to do it.
Thank you. Councillor Bell.
I really support the idea of at least sending out a message, even if it's on social media, just to make it really clear of what our intentions are. I've just got a bit of concerns if we leave it too late and we're waiting on others for us to make a movement of, at the end of the day, we're servants to our community. So it's important that we really show that we're caring beyond just a message. Yeah, and especially because we know that we all know this has been a really hard year for our community on the back of COVID that we've had, the inflation prices, they're really struggling. So just to have the opportunity for them to say what they need to say. And I do recognise that at times it's just an opportunity for them to express themselves, Mr. Chairman. But there's a healing to that. And that's really important that they have that.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor McFadyen.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. My thoughts more around the process that really, do we actually know, Your Worship, when, where this change in local police responsibilities is likely to happen? Is it, if it stays away, it's not such a problem. If it's weeks away, I think it is a problem to wait.
Yeah.
Okay. Councillor Blackmore.
Thank you. I support Councillor Bell's comments, and I agree that the process of listening is healing in itself. And I wonder whether we're taking a too narrow a view on the prevention of crime. It doesn't just come down to policing, but the drivers of crime in itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you like to elaborate?
Well, I just wonder whether hearing from some of our committees, our social services, about what they are experiencing at the moment as well around vulnerability, need, those sorts of things might be helpful. I think we can assume what they would say, but it would be good to hear from them.
How is it going to be helpful in terms of trying to do something positive to solve the issue?
I think it would give us some more insights that we could perhaps act on.
Thank you. Councillor Short.
I don't know if it's the appropriate forum, but it is the AGM of FDP next week. So probably the best opportunity to get a group of retailers and business people together, and perhaps after the AGM part's over, we could have a conversation in some format, if it's appropriate.
It does seem like an appropriate item of general business for their meeting. Yep. Anyone else? Councillor Hadfield.
Yeah, look, it's you know, the short term, we've actually got to look at the short term issue. And as I said, one of them is that the public are actually now asking for something. So I sort of agree there's more than one way to skin a cat here, but I think we need to get some comms out. I fully understand what Her Worship's saying around the change in the district, the police district leadership, and that's actually a step to take, but it's a bit further down the track than probably what the community are looking for now, and perhaps it's something that we can do some comms on in terms of actually the council's view as to you know, to look at this with new police management when it occurs, but in the short term, something needs to happen, and whatever that is, we need to let people know what council can do. Obviously, the issue of cameras will come up, and we need to give that urgent consideration. So let's, you know, why can't FDP actually be messenger for the council, you know, to the business community, if we've got some comms about what our plan is. Just a thought.
Councillor Quarry.
Yeah, I'm not trying to underrate the seriousness of the issue, because I believe it's a major concern. But another meeting is not going to achieve anything. People want results. They want to be able to stand. If you go to a meeting, you want to be able to stand up at the meeting and say, in 2 weeks' time, there will be cameras in. You need to offer something to them. And all it will be another talk fest where, yes, we hear your concerns. Yes, we appreciate them. No, we can't do anything about it. Yes, we've done it in the past. And unless we can actually do something, then I'd be very reluctant to have a meeting and just say, yes, 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 because we're not achieving anything. Now, whether we lobby the opposition parties or whatever, but it's a political decision to rectify the police presence in our area. But I'd just be careful about having a meeting for the sake of having a meeting.
Your Worship.
Thank you. I'm wondering whether the first step in one of several steps is for me to call the leaders, community leaders together and have a meeting, which we did before the public one that we had last time, and get so that the heads of the police They attended that as well and were able to listen, and this included principals at the schools and the groups that are working in that space together, so that we have some sort of idea, you know, and Lynn and I have talked about, well, if the police aren't going to resource this, we need to, as a community, to decide what are we and what can we do, or what are we already doing that we could do better to support what's going on. So, and to do that, we need all those leaders engaged. And that is a meeting I think is worth to have.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. Sounds like a good initiative. Councillor Bell.
Councillor Quarry, I hear what you're saying. There's no point going to a meeting when you can't offer solutions. In Māori, we call, when we get together, we call it a wānanga. So when I hear meeting, in a Pākehā sense, you go in to listen. In a Māori sense, you actually go in to have a wānanga, which is where you have a discussion and every single person in the room is responsible for collectively working together for a solution. So it depends how you, so I see the idea of meeting with the concerns in the community really differently. I expect that by listening, we would be able to think of something. And I have hope that we're a sharp council, hopefully, that we'll be able to offer something once we have listened. I've no intention just to sit there and listen and offer nothing. I think one of the opportunities, because it's really important that we always think of opportunities when we meet with our community. One of the great opportunities that we have in that space too is to manage the expectations as councillors. What is our role? What can we do? And then we can also offer guidance of other responsibilities within our community, whether it's our police, whether it's our leaders, business owners. And that's a really great opportunity for us to remind the community what we can do and what we can't do. And that's been really transparent. So I'm still firmly supportive that we have the opportunity to listen to the community, whether it's at the FDP or another occasion. And if we don't collectively agree, I'm happy to go solo, and whoever else wants to go with me, and I will organise it myself. Ka pai.
I think certainly Her Worship's suggestion as an initial stage, I think we've probably got fairly broad agreement around the table. Do I hear any dissension on that? No, great. So that might be a first step, and then I think that might lead to where to next. So hear the comments that you are saying that it is urgent. We certainly need to hear from our community, but I've also got the good suggestion of even if we is to at least let the community know that we are aware of the problem and that we are in the process of doing something about it, albeit we may not be able to solve everything instantly. And frankly, there is a real limit to what council can do, as Councillor Bell has alluded to. So no, I think it's been a useful discussion. So thanks for that. We do have a recommendation on page 132. I'll move that the council receive the minutes from the community committees. I think we're still talking about that, and the Manawatu Youth Council meetings. Is there a seconder? Councillor Blakemore, thank you. Any discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Oh, sorry, Councillor Campbell, before I...
If you wouldn't mind making some note in the minutes about the discussion we've had regarding community security. We've had a discussion on community security.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. All right, so I'll now put the motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. To the contrary, carried. Thank you. Now, I think we can probably zap through the rest of our agenda fairly quickly. I'm mindful of the time, but if we go all the way through to page 208. Oops. It's not 1,208, it just feels like it. Do we have, you can, Chief Executive Shane, if you could speak to, this is to do with our warrants, common seals.
So, Council, is that as part of affixing the common seal of council, we're required to report that back to council. It's done under delegated authority. where there's resolutions of council, then the sealers are fixed by the signatures of Her Worship and myself. For things like warrants of authority, then I have delegated authority to sign those on my own under seal. That's what we've done over those months for your information.
Questions, Councillor Short?
I was going to say, I was going to be happy to move the recommendations that perhaps for the new councillors, Chief Executive would just like to give a bit more information about why some staff have a warrant of authority.
Okay, so those ones there in particular are our after hours noise people. So they're contractors. So to be able to operate on behalf of council, they have to have a warrant. It gives them that authority, to enact the relative legislation, but B, to be able to go onto the land. So they have a warrant of authority under the Local Government Act to be able to go on to the property for the purposes. Mostly this is about after hours noise complaints. But a lot of our staff have warrants of authority under the relative pieces of legislation. So if council staff go on to private land, they need a warrant. We just can't wander on. We need to have legislative power. And also there are other requirements under the Building Act, the Resource Management Act, liquor, health, that have their own specific pieces in their legislation where we are warranted to do certain things. Some of those warrants are quite extensive, run to 2 or 3 pages, especially in the Building Act and the RMA.
Thank you. Councillor Hadfield, will you?
No, look, I was just going to move the motion, actually.
Well, I think Councillor
Short was
yep, we'll let
beat me to the punch.
The schedule of sealed documents to be received.
Thank you, Councillor Short. Maybe Councillor Hadfield would like to second it, and he does. He's absolutely champing at the bit to second it, so that's great. We'll accept you seconding it, Councillor Hadfield. Thank you so much. Any discussion? Those in favour, please raise your hand. To the contrary, carried. Thank you. And move on 3 pages to 211, and we have Lagoima. Brent, welcome to council table, and we look forward to you perhaps just giving us a quick overview of Lagoima requests.
So we've, I'm not sure if you have some of the stats in front of you here, but I'm not sure if you've had an opportunity to see the statistics there, but we've done completed 30 during the period 1st of July to the 4th of November. In fact, in just the last month, we've had quite an uptick in Lagoimas coming through. So we started to deal with quite a high volume across a wide range of subjects. To the new elected members who may not be familiar with this process, at the start of the year, we undertook a bit of an improvement in the way that we were performing Lagoima, just making sure that we're responding appropriately and in the appropriate time frame. So it's been quite a focus for the corporate team this year, and we're also looking to introduce some changes soon around how we manage privacy and also requests from the Ombudsman Office, which we get sometimes if we don't get it right. Where you might see the percentages where it says percentages sent in the time frame, so we have 20 working days to provide the information to the requester. Now, those statistics don't take into account that sometimes they are put on pause and the timer is paused so that we can gather further information. A good example would be the Apawe Road Lagoima. So we've had quite a few requests around that, and we needed to gather quite a lot of information, and we just needed a little bit of extra time. And we also wanted to make sure that the responses went out to everyone at the same time so that they didn't think that we were doing anything inappropriate. So that's really not much else to cover off there, but if there's anything in there specifically you'd like me to talk to, I'm happy to talk to it.
Thank you. Just approximately how much time, person hours, would we be putting into this process? So, and I'm assuming that it's increased significantly in recent years, but that's a question really.
Yeah, look, I would say it's probably about a half an FTE's function right now. It certainly was probably a little bit more difficult for the people who had to do it the last year, because it was sort of down to sort of one person, but there's a team of people looking at it now. And so there's a shared responsibility. The person, for example, who compiles this report and actually does the processing also looks at property files and those sorts of things. So they're very well versed in how to do this, but there is another step coming shortly where we will be looking to provide some training on Privacy Act and how to effectively respond to lagoimas, and that'll be available for anybody who would end up being involved in a response. And so that'll be something that'll be brought in the new year.
Councillor Hadfield?
Yeah, LG 2110. I was a little bit interested in, and I see in the attachments that its details have been withheld for privacy. But I was wondering if it's possible to find out the outcome of those 2 infringement notices.
Yeah, I could find that out and come back to you.
Thank you.
Just for the purpose of privacy, the reason why it was withheld was because there was some information for somebody else who'd actually asked the same question, and we had been able to provide that information to the person who was actually named in the thing, but not the other person in the requests.
Thank you. Councillor Blackmore?
Thank you. Just wondering, there's quite a difference between the period this year and last year, more than twice as many last year. Is there any comment on what that might have been, the reasoning for that?
Twice as many, sorry?
Oh, requests. So in that table, you've provided 30 for this year in this time period.
Oh no, that's not for this year. That's just between those months, 1st of July.
Yeah, in this time period, the same time period last year was 79, so more than twice.
Yeah, look, honestly, I haven't gone back and reviewed a lot of the ones from last year, apart from the fact that we did have some outstanding ones at the start of the year. The Ombudsman worked with us to help rectify some of those things. We identified some of the issues we had with them, so I couldn't speak to why the volume was high.
Thank you.
I could find out for you if you'd like.
It's fine. I just wondered if there was less interest at the moment, or something in particular was happening at this time last year.
There are different time periods. Yeah. So the last one is annual, and this one.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm reading that incorrectly. My apologies.
Councillor Bielski. Thanks.
Yeah. While I've got Brent here, yeah, I was the information request several months ago about how many dogs have been put down, and there was none. And I know I had a text from Lou reassuring me that the dog that worried my sheep was put down, but it hasn't come through at all on your statistics. And Lynn hasn't got back to me, and you haven't either, because you were going to look into it. But I'm very concerned that that dog may be still alive, even though Lou assured me it was dead, but it hasn't come through on your statistics, and I'm a bit concerned about that.
I can speak to that. Steve, I'll speak to that and ask the executive today. Brent has provided information about that.
That's right, I did too.
Not sure if you heard that, Steve, but that'll be answered and ask the executive today.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn. Any other questions? Councillor Bell.
Kia ora, Brent. This might be a question for you and maybe also a question for Ash, so anyone. What is the process when we have a laguima request and it's about a councillor? How are we informed, and what does that look like?
Yeah, look, this is
do we have opportunity to respond ourselves?
So this is a question we're actually having at the moment. So we do get requests for about information about individuals, but as an elected member, so we wouldn't be providing any information with you from an individual's perspective. But if the subject matter and we required you to help respond to that, then we would work with you to help respond to the Lagoima, if that makes sense.
Plus, we send the Lagoimas that we think will affect it at a governance level all go to the mayor for her to review and to have a look at. So Lagoimas essentially are not about opinion, they're about people want information. So we've just got to be a little bit careful with our Lagoimas that we don't stray into areas where it's not about providing information. So the team scrutinise those quite closely. And yeah.
Thank you, Shane. I think just thinking about when do we get involved into the response, and is there ever a time where you respond on behalf of us and we're unaware? I think that's what my question was, really what I was asking.
Yeah, look, so we wouldn't respond on your behalf without at least asking you for clarity around the question. So it would really, as Shane's pointed out, it's really just about information that you would be able to provide to inform the Lagoima. And that would be it. So it would not be usual for us to advise an elected member or the mayor that there was a Lagoima there concerning them, unless it was something that they had to contribute to, or we felt would be good for them to contribute to.
Awesome, thank you, Brent.
I think this is a very good topic, and we have had major problems with it in the past. And so the reason that Her Worship does get involved, where it's contentious or whether it involves an elected member, is because we did have Lagoimas going straight off to stuff without, frankly, inappropriately sent to stuff. And so we were highly concerned about this, and we raised it, and this was a new initiative that came in a year or 18 months or thereabouts ago. So I think it's a great topic to raise, and I think with the change of staff, etc., things sometimes get missed and lost in interpretation. So it is a matter, Brent, that I guess is of extreme concern to us, and we would hate to think that something went off, particularly to the newspaper or the stuff that, as it did some time ago on a number of occasions. So Chief Executive has outlined what does happen. We're just keen to make sure that that does happen. Now, that's not an opportunity for the mayor to veto anything, or but just to raise the flag and say, look, are you aware? Because quite often we know things that you don't know, staff don't know, and are you aware of this, this, and this? And oh no, we weren't. Oh, that does change things then. So it's that sort of opportunity.
That would most likely be the point you'd end up being informed, because we'd need to receive some information for you to go into the Lagoima. In the case of where there was a Lagoima perhaps that came through that you weren't involved in or weren't approached about, we have a process internally where a number of people above and below me decide and think, rationally about what might be the best way to go about this.
Cool, good discussion. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Councillor Belsky.
Yeah, it's just on. I've been challenged a bit on the road, Arawira Road. Hang on. Yeah, on the road that we with Christensen up in the Pahongana, and we are looking at changing it to an easement to make it more practical for him and for trampers and hunters. But I've had been challenged quite a bit. I know it's coming up later about the submissions coming in, but on the could I ask our CEO on an easement, is there? Can you or is this not the place to talk about it? But I just saw that someone has asked on that road, and that there is submitters coming up. But I was just basically asking, how do I answer someone that challenges me as a councillor on why are we doing this? Why can't we change the road? Why do we have...
Councillor Bills, I'm going to just interrupt you there and say we'll deal with this and ask the exec. It's not really relating to the Lagoima position.
Okay. Yep.
And our chief executive will happily give you some advice in that regard. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Right. Any other questions? Thank you, Brent. We've got a recommendation, page 211. I'll move that the report detailing the requests for information received under the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987 from 21 September to 4 November 2022 be received. Is there a seconder, please? Councillor Hadfield. Any discussion? All those in favour, please raise your hand. To the contrary, carried. Thanks very much, Brent. Okay. No late items. Any reason why I should not close the meeting? Right, we'll close the council meeting. Thank you very much, and we'll have a break if we could be back. What do you reckon?